Hello and welcome back. I am the heir of Carthage, and sorry I have been so absent, but I was blessed with Nurgle's filth starting on Friday and all through the weekend, and I lost my voice and literally was not able to speak, so videos were out of the question. I did consider recording a few and uploading without commentary, but just didn't have a lot of time as I was trying to rest and get well. And, basically just trying to fight through this kind of stuff. It's just sinus stuff, nothing serious. It's going away. But without a voice, it is quite difficult to be a YouTube commentator. Anyway, I'm going to try and get back into the swing of things this week. My voice does sound rough at a few points. You'll know why. This one is going to be an awesome matchup sent in to us by Consul of Rome. And as you can see, it is Bretonnia versus Dark Elves. Now, this is a pretty cool matchup. Dark Elves have superior infantry, but who doesn't have superior infantry to Bretonnia? Bretonnia has excellent large in the form of their cavalry. They also have great aerial cavalry. They've got access to several lords that should be pretty darn solid in this matchup. For this matchup, Bretonnia has gone with Alberic de Bordelot and a paladin. Both of these provide a relatively speedy anti-large component, which is pretty good. The Dark Elves have some pretty nasty single entities they can field. And not to mention, Alberic and the paladin are going to get around the battlefield very quickly, which makes them potentially a nice counter to Morathi, who is a fairly common pick with the Dark Elves. She's not the only pick, but if I were playing the Dark Elves, she is the only pick. To me, Morathi is just bar none the best legendary lord the Dark Elves have, but they do have other options. And so I think the Bretonnians chose wisely in terms of having anti-large and fast-moving, because Morathi is very fast-moving. She does have Heartrender and Dark Sword and Enchanting Beauty, so she'll be doing a whole lot of debuffing for anything that's near her, and rightfully so. The Bretonnian player has focused on pushing Morathi and those flying crossbow units completely out of the fight. And speaking of the fight, we have basically cheap infantry, men-at-arms, peasants. They're being supported by 3 cavalry units, which is Questing Knights, Knights of the Lion-Hearted, as well as we have some Grail Knights. So 3 knight units, all with some different capabilities. A couple of them have anti-large. The Questing Knights are anti-armor. There was a couple of Reaper Bolt Throwers, which are suffering badly now at the hands of the Bretonnian archers. There was 2 Fire and 1 Pox Arrow archers. And the Bretonnians had that Men-at-Arms front, and then they had some Spearmen-at-Arms and Men-at-Arms with pole arms in the background. Now, one of the centerpiece units for the Dark Elves was this Charybdis. Their front line and back line was just Dread Spears, which against Bretonnia is honestly a great pick. Bretonnia's infantry is bad, and so Dread Spears will be fine. And then they picked 1 Blackguard, which is a nice immune to psychology, anti-large AP unit that is very difficult for any Bretonnian infantry to deal with, unless the player brings men-at-arms, or sorry, man, I'm going to forget the name here. The armor-piercing, there's 1 armor-piercing infantry that Bretonnia has. For some reason, their name is escaping me at the moment. I'm sure it will come back to me here, but I haven't played Bretonnia in a long time. In any case, you can see the cavalry kind of running roughshod while Morathi is busy and basically avoiding the Charybdis. This is a smart move. This is what the Bretonnian player should do. Look for units that aren't braced. Come in and smash them. Now, Morathi finally gets free and is able to dive in and support her Charybdis and her Blackguard. And with Morathi around, these Blackguard are going to be completely untouchable. There is no way that the Bretonnians have anything other than maybe magic that can do damage to them. And speaking of magic, the Bretonnians were supported by a damsel with Lore of Life. She does not carry any area of effect spells or direct damage spells. She's just carrying Life Bloom and Regrowth, which Regrowth is obviously very appropriate for supporting a paladin and Alberic de Bordelot. So I don't think that's a bad choice per se. Look at that very nice trident use there. You all didn't catch this quite ahead of time, but that Blackguard was actually on the move, headed into that fight, and it was extremely well timed by the Bretonnians. And that trident came through and just decimated the Blackguard, which was a huge win for the Bretonnians, because they were up against a wall, and a full health unit of Blackguard would have been too much to deal with. Morathi pays back the favor, though, by dropping a Pit of Shades. And her magic, by the way, is Pit of Shades, and then she's got the Power of Darkness, which can help her generate more power. She's also got Soul Stealer, which she can steal hit points from enemy troops. But of course, Soul Stealer uses a lot of magic. So it's, probably the reason why Power of Darkness, which is brought. But remember, Power of Darkness damages a unit, but then provides more winds of magic on the flip side. We're going to see more cavalry charges here, as Bretonnia hopes to take out any unsupported pockets of Dark Elves. This is definitely the way they're going to need to play. With the Charybdis around and being supported by Blackguard, this is a just devastating 1-2 punch here to the Bretonnians, especially with Morathi in the middle of it, because then you're going to suffer massive melee attack debuff. So it's going to be near impossible to land any hits on these units. And this, again, just a great combination here. And the Bretonnians have very little answer to it. You can see they do have a few archers. Early in the battle, I didn't get to call out these Scourge Runner chariots, which I think are a really cool pick versus Bretonnia, and they did do some very nice harassment. They do have an anti-infantry quality that comes into play when they charge into melee, but they have an AP anti-large missile, which against Bretonnia makes a lot of sense because there's going to be cavalry units, and there's also going to potentially be flying cavalry units. So I do like the pick of the Scourge Runner chariots. There was 2 of them originally. Bretonnia has been able to get rid of one of them, but there is still one left. And like I said, after they've expended their ammunition, which this unit has, you can see it didn't actually get very much points. It must have expended its ammunition against low-cost targets, or just missed a whole bunch. These are going to be pretty good units. This one, though, wanders too far forward and really gets way too close to Alberic and the Damsel, all of which are very fast, and the Scourge Runner chariots are quick, but not that quick. So that's a bit of a bad situation for the Dark Elves. Meanwhile, though, the Blackguard continues to be basically untouchable. It's racked up over 107 peasant kills. Look at Morathi here. You cannot underestimate Morathi. She pulled these guys into a fight where they're already massively debuffed. Look at the stats here, and then she just drops a Pit of Shades all over them. And it absolutely decimates most of the remaining Bretonnian cavalry. It's a bit of a risk because Morathi is trapped in there, but the Bretonnians at this point are going to probably try and do some fleeing. As they did, Morathi kind of has an opportunity to maybe try and extricate out of that fight, though she hasn't tried yet. The Charybdis is nearby. You can see Alberic looking to come in. Alberic would be able to KO Morathi relatively quick in a one-on-one, so it's a fight he would want. She most definitely would not, and if the Paladin was around, they would kill her very quickly. Morathi isn't bad in melee. She's actually pretty good, but she's low armor. And so she doesn't also have particularly high melee defense, which means she can fall apart quickly even though she's debuffing things. However, if you put her in the right blob, like surrounded by Blackguard and Charybdis, she'll be pretty tough. See there how Alberic lands some big hits on her, even with the debuffs going on. Lords have such high attack that they can still land some hits, even when they're being massively debuffed. So it's not to say it doesn't help, it does. But Morathi is in trouble if she ends up in melee for too long here. Now we're going to enter a phase of this battle where Bretonnia is basically trying to mop up pockets of Dark Elves. They've still got a very difficult couple of units. The Charybdis and the Blackguard are going to be very difficult to deal with. They still have their Paladin back here. They were not able to kill the Raven Heralds, so that's still a threat. And they've got a lot of infantry, including a couple of polearms and some men-at-arms and the Damsel that are moving back up here try and support, but the cavalry has to play very careful here. It cannot get caught by the Charybdis. The Charybdis does have Fear and Terror, and there is some immune to psychology on the the Questing Knights and the Grail Guardians. I called them out as Grail Knights earlier, so that's my bad. Grail Guardians are going to be just a more general melee cavalry. They don't hit as hard on the charge. They are not anti-large, but they have much better defensive characteristics and are very good versus low armor. The Knights of the Lionhearted are a magic attack anti-large cavalry, so they would do quite well against the Scourge Runner chariots. Well, you can see Bretonnia just throwing some peasants here to feed the Charybdis, essentially. Unfortunately for these peasants, it is feeding time, and this is no zoo, at least not one that they would prefer to be at. Boy, that is one ugly mug. Makes me feel better. So we got the Charybdis. He's going to shred through all of this Bretonnian infantry. Is extremely high risk to a near instant rout from the Charybdis. If you look at this back here, Foe Seeker's being used by Alberic as well as his decent speed to stay right on top of Morathi. Morathi is very quick, but Foe Seeker makes a big difference as well. There's a bit of a speed boost on Alberic, and you can see him being able to catch up and get charges, though Morathi has still managed to mostly avoid a lot of that damage. You can see the Paladin wanting to get in here too. The Raven Heralds, though, are coming in and being annoying, and the Paladin's going to have to keep them off of the cavalry who are kind of trying to cycle in here and charge. They put together a regrouped blob of infantry here. The risk of this blob, though, is that it can basically instant route to the Terror. Now, if I were Morathi, I would be looking to dive down to the ground to get away from Alberic, and that's actually exactly what she does. She's going to dive down, try and find some safety in numbers down here on the ground, and safety with the Blackguard. It will be difficult, but not impossible, for Alberic to hit her down here where she has some support. Here comes another Trident. It was aimed at the Blackguard, only narrowly catches them this time, not near as devastating. But Morathi does end up getting surrounded here, and you can see how quickly she'll fall apart in the wrong scenario. So despite having the support of the Charybdis and the Blackguard, there was enough units there that they were able to tag her out of this fight. And with her out, there's some pretty serious debuffs that go away, you know, that are typically there from Morathi's presence. So look at this 12 melee attack that was there for the men-at-arms. So Morathi has definitely got to be driven out. You can see Alberic ensuring that that happens here. But meanwhile, the Bretonnian units still have to face a Charybdis. A Charybdis that is going to be very powerful, especially with the support of these Blackguard of Nagaron. There's 37 of them left. They have 211 kills. They are, yeah, 211 kills. That is insane. The Charybdis has some chevrons here. Surely that's not just from this battle. I don't know that for sure. I forgot to look. I guess you could rewind to the opening screen and look. All the Bretonnian infantry terror routes, kind of as predicted, or just routes because of being beaten to death. The Charybdis drops huge damage. Its armor is pretty mid-range, so it is vulnerable to like a lot of archer fire or just, you know, combined anti-large forces. But that terror can sometimes break up blobs, and it's very good at dissuading single entities, as most of them are vulnerable to its anti-large. So Charybdis, definitely an effective creature. Sometimes a War Hydra is also a really good pick because it heals as the battle goes on. So like for instance, if this were a War Hydra, you'd lose that anti-large, but it would have been healing this whole time. Plus it picks up breath attacks. So I don't know, I kind of waffle between the two. I tend to find myself favoring the War Hydra where possible, but the Charybdis is very good against large, and I think it's a very understandable pick against Bretonnia, where sometimes you just need some focused anti-large, and you can't afford to be in that middle ground with healing or not. We're going to see Bretonnia's regrouped cavalry and their leadership and their peasants and everybody getting ready to dive in and try to finish off these last few remaining monsters. I expect these peasants will terror out almost instantly. Alberic and his paladin are going to need some really good charge damage, and they get some. The Charybdis taking some big leadership hits and a lot of hit point hits. You can see the cavalry coming in, the damsel coming in, everybody hitting with everything they got. Blackguard cannot be terror routed. There's not even anything here to cause a terror rout. Remember, they are immune to psychology. And the Charybdis starts to lay down some big beatings, but it's also losing a lot of hit points, and it's losing infantry support slowly, as it only has 30 Blackguardsmen to protect it, whereas Bretonnia has multiple units in the vicinity. Look at that, though, a terror rout on the damsel. You're going to see a terror rout on the Knights of the Lion-Hearted. We're going to see a rout on Alberic, and only the Paladin was really able to stay in that fight, and it was an epic fight all the way to the end. So a very cool match there between Bretonnia and the Dark Elves. Loved this one. We have no name over here for the Dark Elf player, and then Consul of Rome. But I felt like that the Dark Elves played a really darn good fight here. I like the unit selection. Reaper Bolt Throwers are also pretty good against large and single entities. So not a bad pick. It forces Bretonnia forward. It gives you some ranged answer to their archers. Scourge Runner Chariots, again, could potentially be very valuable. This one did pretty good. The other one, not so much. The Raven Heralds were a nuisance the entire fight, if nothing else. I don't think they hit back all the way to their value. But the Blackguard did, so it was a very effective unit. And honestly, I mean, I would expect the Dread Spears, since they're so cheap, most of them probably performed fine. The Charybdis did well, and Morathi did extremely well here, too. Take a look at Alberic. Alberic did a really phenomenal job here. An excellent trident early on that hurt those Blackguard. If he had not dropped that trident on the Blackguard, I dare say this match would have ended differently. And I think at the end, you all know that if that Blackguard hadn't lost, I mean, good grief, it was almost 50% of their hit points to that trident. There's no way Bretonnia pulls this one out. Those Blackguard would have worn them out and been able to help defend that Charybdis to the end, I think. So that was a clutch play and some really nice damage done by Alberic. His Paladin also doing very well. These are pretty cheap units. It doesn't take a lot for them to pay off. take a look at the cavalry. They struggled in this match to pay back. But they were still very important because they were charging and causing the damage that ended up routing a lot of the cheaper units that the Dark Elves brought to the field. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this one. I thought this was a fantastic battle. Appreciate that one being sent in by Consulate Rome, who has sent us replays before. I've got some more good replays that people sent in, and then I've also got some replays from my Dawe Thunder campaign, which I'll be continuing on stream this week too if you want to check it out. So I do have more Warhammer battles coming your way. I'm going to be recording more Rome 2 Seleucid campaign. We're going to be continuing the campaign on Troy with Odysseus. So there's lots of good stuff headed your way. Make sure you don't miss it. HeirofCarthage signing up for now. I will see you soon.